Welcome to the Modco podcast. Conversations about life, organization, entrepreneurship, and everything in between. This show was created to provide motivation, inspiration, and a reminder to give yourself grace. Here, we are transparent, non-judgmental, authentic, and love to have fun because sometimes you need to laugh at yourself. I'm your host, Angel. Sit back and get ready for valuable tips, resources, laughs, and more. If this is your first time here, welcome. And if you've been hanging around for a while, welcome back. And I hope you brought a friend.
Welcome to another awesome and exciting episode of the Marco podcast. Be sure to grab some food and drinks and just chillax.
Today, I am talking with Kirsten Graham. Kirsten knows that as a business owner, time is our most valuable asset. She loves helping business owners go from being invisible to getting in front of the right audiences so that they can build their authority and generate quality leads. This frees them up to focus on making money. Everyone, let's welcome Kirsten. Hi, Kirsten. How are you?
Fantastic, Angel. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm excited about our conversation.
You are so welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm excited to chat with you as well. So, is there anything else you'd like to share before we get started?
No, let's just jump into all the fun questions.
All right, let's do this. So, how long have you been an entrepreneur and how did you get started?
So I started selling real estate in the late 80s. So a very long time, maybe longer than you've been around. I don't know.
Yeah. I was born in 86, so it might be around the same time.
Okay. Yeah. So I started selling real estate. I eventually moved to the mortgage side of that industry. Eventually, I owned a mortgage company. I owned a title company. I did just a ton of loans for self-employed people. And inevitably, because I would see their personal tax returns and their business tax returns, they would always ask me later, can I take you to lunch and pick your brain? So I mentored other business owners for about a decade before I actually started taking on paid coaching clients. And eventually I left the mortgage industry at the end of 2013. I like to say we survived uh, 08, but we were not thriving. And at this point, I really started taking on more and more paid coaching clients, and I was falling in love with that. And so I transitioned out of mortgage and title at the end of 2013 and really haven't looked back. It's been a really fun journey. I love working with business owners.
What have you been up to since then?
Yeah, so I have a lot of one-on-one coaching clients. Some of them I've had for over a decade already, which is kind of fun. But one of the things that I realized was that the biggest challenge for most business owners is really lead generation and the fact that they just don't have enough time in their day. And my current business partner, who was actually a past client, I had actually helped her start outsourcing almost 16 years ago. She had a marketing agency and we started outsourcing overseas. You know, she's so brave because I said, I've read a book about outsourcing overseas. Would you want to try that? And she said, okay. So we kind of went on this journey together, made tons and tons of mistakes, but it was fascinating to see her agency evolve and grow with having a team, you know, overseas. It's very affordable to hire overseas. So for a lot of business owners, it can just be affordable when hiring, you know, in the States is not necessarily affordable when you're first starting out. So with that process, she and I became great friends and eventually we partnered because what we realized was the two challenges, which is lead generation, which was really about marketing, and time, which is really about outsourcing. So we both have our passions. So mine's business coaching and outsourcing and hers is really marketing and lead generation. So we ended up partnering. And so we really help our clients, you know, with those two things. And it's been fun. It's a lot of fun actually.
Okay, awesome. And so you've mentioned something that's been coming up a lot lately when I've just been talking to people on the podcast or just in general is outsourcing. And a lot of small business owners and solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, they have trouble with outsourcing, you know, either because one, like you said, they can't afford to outsource or they just don't feel comfortable like letting go. They have issues like trusting it. And so how can outsourcing be like a self-care mechanism for entrepreneurs? How can we get comfortable with outsourcing?
Yeah, it's funny. I have done several talks on outsourcing is a form of self-care. So yeah, so first of all, like I said, we started doing this 16 years ago, and I would like to say if it can be done wrong, we did it wrong more than once. You know, we made
Okay.
so many mistakes. and we learn from those mistakes. And we got taken advantage of a few times. Like we paid a couple people ahead of time because they'd worked for us for a while, then they disappeared. Um, but I will caveat that right now. If anybody on my team had a struggle in their family and they needed an advance, I'd still give it to them. Because we have done that. We have done that many times in the past and have not been burned by it. But just early on, we made a couple mistakes. Um, but yeah, but on the flip side of that, we've hired hundreds of virtual assistants and trained hundreds of virtual assistants for our clients. And it really is a two-way street, right? So on the flip side, where we've had bad experiences, and I know I hear a lot of times from clients, I hired someone and it was more work than it was worth, or I hired someone and, if I have to spend all that time training them, it's not worth it. So I understand that a lot of people, it's challenging. It's challenging to give up that control. It's hard to know what to give them. I get all of that. But on the flip side of that coin, the virtual assistants that we've talked to over the past 16 years who have, they have people that cuss at them. They have people that ask them to do things but give them no direction. They have
Mm.
people that don't pay them, or that they have clients that just disappear. So, again, it really is a two-way street. So we're really working with our clients on how to understand cultural differences and then how to be a great, employer when you employ people, because we lead people, we manage tasks. And so that's part of our philosophy and how we work with our clients and their virtual assistants. So I guess my first piece of advice for someone who's thinking about outsourcing is, um, as far as letting go of control, you have two choices. If you want to grow a much bigger business, you can learn to delegate and understand that you're not letting go of control, because you're still going to approve everything that goes out or sign off on it. So you're still in control. You're just delegating tasks. So I think that's one thing to understand. So it's really not about losing control. It's about stepping into a leadership role. And a lot of people, they start a business and it's really not a business. They started a job for themselves. They're doing all the work, they're handling all the tasks. Often we joke that entrepreneurs are the only people that'll leave a 40-hour a week job to work 80 hours a week, right? Yeah.
Yes, I just saw that the other day somewhere. Yep.
So it's understanding that, if you want to have a great quality of life, one of the skills that you need to learn is hiring and delegating and managing and leading people. So I think that's the first thing, is understanding. And there's nothing wrong with, if you just want to be a solopreneur and not ever have anybody, and you can make a good living and you're not killing yourself doing it, perfect. That's great. You don't have to do this. But for those of you that have bigger dreams, you want to build a six-figure business, or a business that's doing $500,000, or a business that's doing $1 million, or $10 million, or whatever that looks like, you're generally not going to do that on your own.
Okay. And you mentioned something that I want to ask you about too. You said paying ahead of time and like getting burned. So that's obviously like a lot of, well, most of the time when you outsource, you do have to pay for it in advance. Like all the services that I always see, it's you have to pay the money up front before the work is done. And I know many, many years ago that was frowned upon. Like you paid people after the work was done. But of course, the people who were doing the work, they were worried that I may not get paid for it and I've done this work. And so then that's when the policies kind of implemented of, okay, you pay before you get started. And now it's the other way around, that the person who's getting the work done, they're worried about that. So what are some things that we can kind of do to, I guess, combat that fear of, okay, if I pay ahead of time, they may take
Right.
my money and I may not get anything done.
Okay, so first of all, we have a very different model. So, for example, when you're talking about hiring somebody, maybe from Upwork or something like that, you are paying them in advance. They're their own business owners. They're freelancers. They're working for a lot of different clients, and they're really, they're business owners. When we're outsourcing overseas, we're really helping our clients to employ someone who is going to be a part of their team for a very long time. And in that case, we do pay them after they've done the work. So if a virtual assistant starts on the 1st, they get paid on the 15th and they get paid on the 30th. So we do pay our virtual assistants after, just like you pay an employee in the US. You're paying them after they've done the work. When I talked about like giving advances, it's something like maybe they got hit by a storm and there's something struggling in their family, or, a big medical bill. So just little things like that sometimes we have been known to advance some of our team members if they've been in a really hard place. We very seldom get asked to do that, but occasionally. Um, so we generally, most of our clients are always paying their virtual assistants after they've done the work, just like they pay their employees in the US.
Okay. So what if like someone's in a situation where I should say that they're not, like the contracted work, how sometimes virtual assistants, if they're like, okay, you have to pay me, I start work on the first, payments due on the 30th or the 31st. Is that considered a red flag? Should that be something that you watch out for? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, again, there's so many different types of outsourcing, right? So there's outsourcing where you're going and you're just finding someone to build a website for you. You're hiring a company or a person to build a website. That's a form of outsourcing. In most cases, website developers want 50 to 60% upfront and you pay them the rest at the end. Or let's say you're going, to Fiverr or one of the other places online and you're hiring someone to do something specific for you, like maybe create a logo or a business card. Again, they may ask for payment up front because they're running their business like a business, or they may ask for part of it up front. So again, that's a very different type of outsourcing than what we do. We're really focusing
Mm,
on helping our clients bring on team members. So
okay,
again,
got
if you're
it.
going through a reputable site and they've got lots of great reviews and you see all the great work that they've done, I don't think it's inappropriate for them to ask for part of the payment up front. I'm always hesitant to give someone all of the payment up front. But yeah, again, it just depends on the platform that they're on and how that platform generally runs payments. Is it that you're normally paying the people in advance because you're hiring them for one specific task? Or if you look around to some of the virtual assistants want 50% up and 50% at the end. So I think you just have to figure out what you're most comfortable with.
Thank you for that. So we touched on it a little bit, but I would love to dive deeper into it. So why do you feel like why do you think that entrepreneurs feel like they have to do it all other than the whole control thing? Is there another reason why you think that we feel like we have to do it all?
Sure. So I think for women, some of it comes down to self-worth, right? So we feel like our worth is tied up in the things that we do. So for other people, it could be that maybe they're OCD and they really have that, no one can do it as well as I do, which is a control issue. So that's kind of a little bit of a different issue. And then there's also people who, like we've got a client and it's just so interesting because she thought that she could never be a good boss or a good leader because back when she was like in college, she worked for a restaurant as a hostess. And for some reason, they put her in charge of like scheduling all the servers and the hostesses. Well, I don't know if
Mm,
you've ever worked in a restaurant, it's like herding cats.
yes.
So one, they didn't give her proper training. Two, it was, really that should not have been a hostess's job, but she just
No.
felt like she failed epically at it, right? So that in her mind, she was not a good boss. She was not a good leader. She was not a good delegator. She was not a good manager of people. So for her, it was having a bad experience in the past that made her really doubt her ability to grow her business by building a team. So that's changed a lot over the past few years, and she is building a great team. And but I think becoming a leader and becoming a manager is just a different skill set. As an entrepreneur, we're constantly learning, we're constantly evolving, and it's important to realize that it's a skill like anything else that you can learn how to do.
And so when should like entrepreneurs start trying to outsource their business? I know we talked about in the beginning that, some people they just can't afford it. If you're just fresh starting out your business, you may not have the funds to be able to outsource it. So at what point should you start trying to outsource different aspects of your business?
So we have a lot of clients that start off with a virtual assistant when they first start their business. So I think the mindset is really changing dramatically, and people are realizing that the investment up front, because you're going to invest one way or the other. You're either going to invest all your time figuring out how the heck to edit a video and how to clean up audio and how to create all the graphics. So you're either going to invest your time doing that, or you can invest some money and pay someone else to do that. So either way, you're investing in that. So I think people who really are driven to build their business and like they need to make a paycheck, they're understanding that they need to spend their time making money, not sitting there learning how to use a video editing software, right? So I think we're starting to see a lot more people come into the space with knowledge about the fact that their time is very valuable. They need to be having conversations with their ideal client, They need to be closing those ideal clients into their services or whatever they do. And then they need to be servicing that client to the best of their ability. So they're building a great reputation and they're getting referrals. So again, we're all going to pay, whether it's with money or with time. So yeah, if you're a person who's starting your business and you don't have any money, you have time, I would think really long and hard about what you decide to take on and what you decide to do with your time. So maybe you see everyone else doing lots of marketing on lots of platforms. Maybe you just pick one platform and you just stick with that. Because the reality is, sitting behind your computer, creating social media posts in Canva is getting in the way of you making money. So be very, very careful what you choose to spend your time on.
Okay. Yes, creating social media posts in Canva is very, very time consuming. I think I've cut back some time on that. Definitely. I've created like templates and stuff like that. And I was telling
Right.
someone, I was like, I've created my templates, so I just drop in what I need to, and then I've created like my content for what to say. So I was like, I just kind of drop that in and edit it. And edit as need to be, but yes, it can be very time consuming and take a lot of time. Yes.
Well, it's also safer. So sometimes people, it's safer to sit behind your computer and post on social media or scroll on social media than it is to get out and have conversations with people. One of the things, we work with a lot of coaches, and the reality is, building a business online takes time, right? It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to get your brand out. It's very, very competitive, getting your website to rank, getting your YouTube videos to rank, getting your social media posts to get enough traction. So those things all take time. Where for a lot of business owners, they don't realize there's $1 million sitting in their own backyard. So in a lot of cases, they could get out and spend some time networking and bringing in some local clients, and then hire someone to do all the online marketing for them.
Okay. Yeah. I like that. And so you just mentioned something too, networking. So I, I obviously I've networked before. If you're a business owner, you probably definitely like network before. And I've talked about, like you said, like networking in your own backyard before. So do you have any tips or advice on ways that, especially for online business owners, like I feel like if you're a brick and mortar business, it's a lot easier for you to be able to kind of network it, as you said, in your own backyard. But if you're an online business, I think that it can be a little bit harder. So do you have any tips on like networking in
Well,
your own backyard?
I'm gonna challenge your definition of online.
Okay.
So if you have a brick and mortar store in this day and age, you better also have an online store. Look at
Okay.
Walmart, look at Kohl's, look at Target. They all have online stores. So a
This is true.
business isn't about being local or online. That changed 10 years ago, right? And so if you're a coach, I'm just going to keep using I'm going to use coaches as an example because that's top of mind for me right now. But if
Okay.
you're a coach, and let's say the transformation that you provide is, you're a makeup artist and you help women get really comfortable and confident on camera by skincare, and feeling like their hair looks good and the right clothes and their backdrop. That's what you do. You help them do that. There are a lot of businesses, both local and online, in your local area that would want that service, right? So the question you have to ask yourself is, how are the people in your own backyard different than the people on your internet, right? So there's very little chance that you have customers only outside of your local area, that nobody in your local area is going to buy what you sell. So I think that's a big misnomer. So yeah, we are a quote unquote an online business. We don't have a brick and mortar, but the bottom line is I can work with business owners anywhere. And so we have clients all over the US, we have Canadian clients, we have clients in Australia, the UK, but at the same time, I have to get out of my house some because sitting behind my computer is not good for me. So I belong
Mhm.
to a local chamber. I belong to 2 or 3 women's networking groups, and I probably make $10,000 to $15,000 a month from those groups. So again, because what I do, most business owners need. So it's not a matter of just thinking that I'm only going to make money online. So that would be my challenge, is to challenge everyone to think about that. There's no way, if you have a good offer, a good product or service, there's no way that there aren't clients in your own backyard.
You talked about too, like you're a part of a chamber and different women's business networking groups. Are the networking groups local networking groups, or are they like local in-person networking groups, I should say, or are they like local Facebook groups?
They're local in person. I do belong to some
Okay.
Facebook groups that are local, and obviously we do some online networking as well. But the reality is I do belong to a local chamber, so it's fantastic. I'm going to ribbon cuttings, I'm going to different events, I'm getting to know business owners who need our product, who need our service, right?
Okay.
So that's important. Same thing with the women networking groups. I've got one that's called Sassy Sisters Inc., which is a ton of fun. They host a couple happy hours a month and then a lunch meeting. But the women there are all incredibly strong, smart women who want to be successful. And they know that lifting other people up and helping them become successful is going to help them. So whether they use my service or they're referring me to people that they know that need my service, it's a great way to connect with your ideal clients.
Okay. Cool. And can you tell us a little bit more about your services and what exactly it is that you do?
Sure, sure. So we help our clients with their marketing and then outsourcing things. So whether it's helping our clients who want to either start a podcast or a YouTube channel, we help them with a virtual assistant who does all their video editing, audio editing, all of their graphic design, promoting their content, setting up their lead magnets, setting up their funnels. So basically, a marketing virtual assistant who takes care of a lot of their marketing on the back end. And then we
Okay.
also have another program where we help our clients if they've decided they want to do like I do. I guest on a lot of podcasts. So we have virtual assistants that will book them on podcasts. So we give them a process that we use so that they can bring on a virtual assistant, a team member who can consistently get them booked on podcasts. So we're always focusing on outsourcing marketing because I feel like we want to stay in our wheelhouse. We want to make sure that we're helping people with lead generation and marketing and outsourcing those things. So we generally don't work on, somebody just wants a virtual assistant to help them, manage their inbox and their email, that's not really in our wheelhouse.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Well, awesome. Well, Kirsten, I have enjoyed this conversation. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us before we go?
Sure. I've got a free guide for your audience. It's called Double Your Income with a Marketing Virtual Assistant. And you can get that on our website, which is sixfigurebusinesscoaching.com, 6SIX, figurebusinesscoaching.com. And I think there's also a link on there if you want to book a call and chat with me about what it would look like to hire a virtual assistant who can get all of your marketing done.
Okay. Awesome. And how else can everyone connect with you other than the website? Are you on social media or anything like that?
Yes. So we have we have a Facebook page for the business. But what I would say is really if you want to connect with us, go ahead and grab that lead magnet because then we'll start emailing you different resources and then we'll give you
Okay.
multiple opportunities to connect with us. And
Okay.
then on our website are all of our social links because we are on
Okay.
all the yeah.
All platforms. Got you. All right. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I hope
Thank
that
you,
you
Angel.
have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you so
Thank,
much.
thank you. Y'all know I run on coffee, and so does the Modco podcast. If you would like to caffeinate the show, you can head over to buymeacoffee.com/the Modco podcast. There's an option for one-time support or monthly support. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the episode and that you were able to gain something from it. Talk to you next time.